Hi guys, welcome back to Liv's Vivas. I'm Liv and this is the Vivas. So I just wanted to start off by saying this was the last Viva up the square. It's a big sad. I loved my Viva partners, Violet, Sarah, Jared. You guys are amazing. I also wanted to say, look, I found these on Pinterest and they're so cute and they're like daily positive things. So like, for example, day 1 is, what is your biggest struggle with loving yourself? And so there's just like little things, like positive, like self-breathing things that you can do. And I have 31 of them for the month of May. Here's my calendar. So I'm gonna put them on my wall. And I don't know, I just really wanted to share it. I'll link it in the description. So if you want to print them out and do it with me, I would love that. But enough talk. Let's get to today's last Viva. Big sad, but it's gonna be okay because I'm gonna be back next year with more Vivas and it's gonna be amazing. So this final week of the Vivas question is, what can we learn about the lives of the late medieval women through the writings of Christine de Pizzi? So, although we may think and underestimate the diversity views of the past, Christine de Pizzi provides us with evidence of a change in the status of women amongst the upper class. So let's first dive into who was Christine de Pizzi. So she was a feminist from the Middle Ages who broke the traditional standards of a, excuse me, wait, I can't read my writing. Oh, well, she was a feminist of the Middle Ages. She had an Italian background and a great successful astrologist father, and her father had always encouraged Christie's passion for education and her learning. So she was very motivated to learn and pursue her education. So once her father and her husband both passed away, Christine was left all alone with her family and her mother. And so she had to start selling her writings to provide for her family. And she was the first person to do solely live off of her selling her writings. So she's just a really like insane, incredible woman of the Middle Ages. And she really, really shows us that the status of women among the upper classes of the Middle Ages, they really stood out. And so my 3 points are going to be: the cult of chivalry and courtly love shaped how women's roles were perceived. 2, women's roles in the upper and middle classes were far different than we imagined. And 3, the role of women was beginning to undergo a period of change. So, let's start off with this Viva. The cult of chivalry and the courtly love shaped how women's roles were perceived. So, chivalry, what is chivalry? I'm sure you probably have heard it. Chivalry is actually a code of conduct associated with the medieval institution of knightlyhood. It was developed in 1170 through 1220, and it's really like it's from the medieval roots. And at first it kind of started off as a very like military term and something that knights had. So they had military bravery, individual training, and service to others. And it was kind of just for more like the army. But over time, it becomes more integrated in the social and nobility of moral values and virtues during this time. It also combines this warrior ethics and knightly pity and love, and this kind of establishes the courtly love. It's because of the chivalry. So, courtly love. What is courtly love, you might ask? Courtly love is the idea of a man having a glorified crush on a married woman, usually of a higher class, but that was not necessary, so it could be anybody, but you know, normally it's higher class. So Boniface was this poet, and he developed the idea of courtly love. He viewed love as a force of God, which was supported by the great chain of being, which we have studied in past Vivas. And this courtly love references a lot of the amour love. It's the kind of this like worldly love. Just the medieval people really wanted, you know, they had this love for people, money, power, possessions, just very worldly things. And so courtly love, you can see this in literature, and it shows us that love is seen as the most noble emotion and just quality in a person and stuff like that. So just like a vessel was under his lord, a lady was always over her lover, and the lover was meant to serve her in any way necessary and just meet all of her needs like a vessel was under his lord. So affairs, this is because affairs happened in secret, because if an affair happened openly or was discovered, the lady's reputation in that relationship would be ruined and she would be very shamed. So often affairs happened in secret. I don't know why I keep yawning. Okay, courtly love also affected the refined language that is used to describe love and the social role of women. So I have a quote by Alexander Pope, and it is, quote, "Order is heaven's first law, and this confessed. Some are, and must be, greater than the rest, more rich, more wise, but who infers from hence that such are happier shocks, all common sense," end quote. And so I think this was kind of like the describing like how love sorry, I lost my train of thought. So it's just kind of, you know, describing that the first, you know, order of heaven's first law. So like the first law of heaven is to confess, and you know, so like a lot of people had these affairs just because it was easy and they didn't, you know, need to confess it, I guess. An example in the literature, as we can see, is one of the famous ones is Sir Lancelot and Queen Guinevere, and how they actually have an affair due to courtly love under King Arthur, or about King Arthur, I don't know. So some rules of courtly love, let's just go over some of the examples. One of them is love is reinforced by jealousy. So that is kind of absurd, as you can see that it was also very like a competition. You know, you had all these men fighting over for the attention of one woman. It was very like competitive, and yeah. So love can be seen through jealousy. Through the beloved, though of the beloved never leaves the true lover. Yeah, so the beloved will never leave the true lover. And suspicions of the beloved generates jealousy, and therefore intensifies love. So Christine de Pezzi wrote a poem, and it is very sad and just filled with a lot of pain. But the line that she keeps repeating is, "I can neither be healed nor die." And so she's just talking about like this courtly love and this chivalry, and you know, just like the fakeness of it, and the, I don't know, because you know, it was never like truly love, because they were never gonna like leave their husband or their wife for another person that they supposedly loved. So yeah, let's go on to point 2 though. So the women's role in the middle and upper classes were different from how we imagine them. So we often think of the medieval women in the upper and middle classes of being kind of the understudy or the sidekick of the husband, but this is not true. This is just false. This is just a myth that we just busted into two. And it's because Christine talks about studying, which is something you don't hear about. And so a lot of the middle and upper classes women, like Christine, studied and they read books and they learned and they became educated. My gosh, my Siri keeps going off. Okay. So a quote by Alexis Bouvier is, quote, "There are some women who exercise power, providing a challenge to the stereotypical image of medieval women, as opposed and subservient." I'm in a weird mood. Okay, so this is an example of this is in Christine's writings. She says, quote, "One day as I was sitting alone in my study, surrounded by books of all kinds of subjects, devoting myself to literacy studies, my usual habit, my mind dwelt at length on the weighty opinions of various authors whom I have studied for a long time," end quote. And so this just kind of led into her writing an analysis of the Mathilonius. And so again, you can just see that women in the Middle Ages were not just the sidekicks, but they were very well educated and they liked to learn. So my final point for today's Viva is the role of women as was being and undergoing a period of change during this time. So 15th century women had many rights. They could own land, they could divorce their husband if he was mistreating them, they can become a business owner, and they could also become a warrior. A lot of examples of these women, they became warriors, as I've said. They could be writers, scholars. So they just had a lot of great rights, and they gave a lot to society during this time, which is we don't think about and we don't realize. Women in the place of power began to increase. An example of this is Margaret Marshall became a duchess in 1397 by Richard II of England. So she became a duchess, which is kind of cool. And it also increased because of, guess what? The one main event is they became increased was the Black Death. So the Black Death obviously killed a lot of people, and so it kind of forced women to get jobs and become into roles of leadership because there was just not as many people, around. So they had to kind of do jobs that were like man jobs during this time, and then it kind of just stuck. So men thought women were corrupters of the men, but Christine challenges this view publicly. She says, quote, "No matter which way I looked at it, and no matter how much I turned the matter in my mind, I found no evidence from my own experience to hear out such a negative view of the female nature and habits," end quote. So that's how we're gonna end this Viva. That was the end of this Viva. So just a very interesting time period that we don't normally think about and that we don't normally think of women in, but we can really see the evidence and the change of the status of women during this time, especially in the upper class. And you can see this through the writings and character of Christine de Paz. I don't think I'm saying that right. Probably saying nothing right, but whatever. So that's the end of this Viva. It was a great year, guys. I hope you all get the Viva that you want. I hope you all do amazing, because you probably will. Even if you don't, you can print these off and remind yourself that you're an amazing person. And yeah, I loved this year, guys. I want to shout out to my Wednesday fam. You are all amazing, and I will miss being in class with you. I know our class was kind of smaller this year, but I absolutely loved it, and I loved every one of you. See you next year on Los Vivas.